Okay.
I just realised I didn't hit the record button. That'd have helped, wouldn't it?
That would help, yeah.
And hey, you've got one job, just hit record. What? I'll tell you what. I'll do the normal groove, and I'll go and check YouTube.
Hey!
I can't type YouTube today. What the fuck? I never said, what's our YouTube channel again?
Bloody hell. We've only been doing it nearly 10 years.
Oh, mate. It's going to take another 10 for me to even remember how to spell the damn thing. There we go. We're good. We're good. Yes, it works. Woo!
Hey!
I think.
Good. Oh, fantastic. Good evening, Suffolk Ram.
Skazz.
Welcome to episode 211 of the Randos podcast.
Is it 211?
You ask this every time, and yes, it still is.
Okay. I'll take your word
so
for it.
I'll give you a little tips, guys. This is how I do it. This is how I work out. This is what I do, right? I look at the last episode.
Yeah?
And I add one.
One.
Yes.
Starting to sound really complicated, Ram.
Yeah, it's basically Randos plus plus. You know, you iterate it up one.
Mate, I don't know. Is there a script we can run so it does it for me?
Yeah, I'll sort that out for you. Yeah, I can
Thanks,
sort that
mate.
out for you.
Well,
yeah,
what we need, can we get it put on a screen or some kind of thing in my house so that I can just glance at it and go, I've now kept track of time. Have you?
We should get, you know how you used to go in doctor surgeries, they used to have little dot matrix displays?
Yeah.
We should get one rigged up in your house that I have remote control to and can send messages to.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I can't see where that could possibly go wrong.
I can just randomly message you.
I'm like, the voices. They're speaking to me again. I'm getting messages.
If we get one that beeps every time your message comes through, that'd be hilarious.
Seriously, mate, that just reminds me of one of the old doctor's board with the light and then the name next to it.
Yes.
You ready for your
yes. Checkup? I remember those ones.
Well, can we have a tannoy system?
Yes, we can. We can definitely have a tannoy system.
Clean up.
That is the same thing. Oh, sorry. A public address system.
Yes, one of those.
Can't call it tannoy. That's a brand name.
Oh, bloody hell! Stupid brands. See, when your brands take over that mental part, your subconscious. That's the one. You're fucked, really. Everything becomes a brand. But that's not what it should be. That's not even a thing. It's like, yes, I know. But that's the thing that's stuck in my head, so that's what it's going to be. It's a tortoise. Done.
It's a tortoise. Okay, what's it explain? That's logo, isn't it?
See, your head went to the same place mine did.
I remember the logo. I remember having that at school and doing little programming stuff, and finding out many years later there's a robot you could have as well that we never had.
We had that at my school. We had that at my middle school.
No, we didn't get the robot. We just had the computer.
Oh, mate, because you're like moving the little triangle around the screen and all that kind of stuff.
We had a picture of a tortoise on the screen. So you had a little maze and a picture of the tortoise. You had to give it the commands, and it drove around the screen.
You had a maze?
Yeah, we had a little maze to drive it round.
I've never seen a maze. I just got a blank screen with a cursor in the middle of it.
No, we had a little picture of it. It was a little maze, and it was top down. No, when I say a maze, it's basically like a square, a corridor in a shape that's square, in the shape of a square or rectangle.
But
maybe with a little S bend in there.
But Ram, that means that your lot were trusted to navigate things. My lot were just told, look, just go. Clearly, you're never going to be smart enough to be able to figure out how to make this thing.
You lot were trusted with a robot. We weren't trusted with a robot.
Oh, mate, when I say we had a robot, occasionally the head of IT would go, here's a robot. And then they'll dust it off from the few inches of dust that were caked on the top. They'd have to get the knife to cut the dust off of it. And then pop it on the floor and go, move that for the next 5 minutes. And then that was it. That was the extent of comp sci by the time I got to school.
That's it. Right class, that's your 5 minutes of robot time this year.
Yeah, mate, they ain't got budget for anything else. batteries were expensive, mate.
I mean, I was going to say that's how long the AA battery lasted for, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Like, they turned it on. They're like, quickly, guys, come on.
Yeah. What you didn't see is the way down the IT guy had those batteries and he's rubbing them in his hands to get a bit more power in them.
Yeah, so it's like, you're thinking to yourself, mate, seriously, are you telling me that you've been budgeted 1 pack of D batteries all year?
Knowing the British school system budgeting system, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. What do you mean that each member of each student can only have no pencils? What do you mean they have to bring in their own pencils and we can't provide anything?
So I say no pencils. We were negative pencils. We had to bring ours in.
Yeah, it's like, here you go, negative pencils. Fix this. But mate, I don't want to bring in my own pencils. It's like, well, then you're not going to do any schoolwork.
Yeah.
Mate,
I don't think apart from that computer for the logo, which we borrowed, that wasn't a class computer, that was a computer we borrowed just to do the logo thing on it. I don't think we had any other computers, in our school, really.
Really?
I'm trying to remember if we had
I
any.
went to school. I went to the scumbag schools, and we still had computers.
Well, we had no computer lab or anything like that at all. That's for definite.
We did in my middle school.
Well, you got to remember, I
enough.
left in year 5.
No, yeah. No, so that would have been middle school?
I left first year middle school, yes.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Fen Park Primary had, like, computers. Like, I remember, mate, I can remember the song and dance. Year 2, one of my teachers, I think her name was Miss Tarver, was properly excited, bless her. We had a computer in the side, at the side of the classroom, middle side of the classroom. And she gathered us all around, sat us there, and we got to draw a picture and, colour it in and all that kind of stuff. She was really excited. We might have even got to print it out on the little, like, I guess it was a dot matrix printer or whatever, and it'd take like 10 years to print. And at that point, I guess the school knew if you're going to have any computer skills, if you could draw a picture and use the fill tool and it not bleed through the... Yeah. If you knew how to use the fill tool, comp sci student. Middle school, we were still rocking these old, like RM Nimbus computers. I mean, like proper old stuff. So they had like little games on them, like barrels and stuff.
Oh yeah,
that was neat. I don't actually know how old those computers were. But they were pretty feckin' old, and it weren't until probably year 7 of Kirkley Middle. So year 6, they had an entire, like, there was a big room, and off that big room, you'd have more smaller rooms, which are your classrooms. The big room, all around the outside of it, had computers. And then in year 7, there was actually a dedicated computer room with newer computers in it. But they still had the little machine that ran logos on it. And we still brought out the old 5 or whatever. You can actually floppy the disc. Floppy.
Oh yeah, 5 1/4 inch disc.
Yeah, that's it. The ones where if you looked at it funny, that was it. It was gone. Them are the days. Great technology. And then
I showed somebody a 3.5 inch floppy disk once, and they said it looks just like the save icon.
Mate, you've 3D printed the save icon. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So you're damn right I have. This is top technology, mate.
All the time I had someone at work, I was showing him a floppy disk, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've seen these in the history books we've got." It's like, oh fuck.
And Ram's like, oh no, mate, I'm going to be considered a dinosaur.
Oh, it was because when I went to college, we got told to buy a pack of floppy disks to take with us to use.
Yeah, I remember. Look, how many times did you have that kind of that sinking feeling as you'd go to put the disk in to either save or load up your last session? Like, so you'd save over the current session, failed. Load up the previous session, failed. And you're like, oh no. Have that?
I never really had that. I wasn't that really had that issue. I had issues with space on the disc sometimes.
I will say,
But I mean, I was organised. I had a floppy disk for every different class.
oh mate, for every different class,
Yeah,
different class.
yeah, you know all the different the different sub courses they had in them, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. That still doesn't protect you from a disk failure, though.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. Oh no, the way. But at least if I lost, I would only lose one class's worth of failure if it went.
Oh yeah, but that's bad enough.
Oh yes, bad enough.
Because then you have to look at the sheet they give you and go, shit, what do I need to do to get a pass?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it would always fail on like the last couple days.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you one of the worst for me. Last off college, right? Last off college, wonderful fucking place, right? I remember there was two cases, right? One, there was a bug with my user space where I didn't have any, so I couldn't save anything. And the IT department weren't particularly bothered by it, so I couldn't save anything, couldn't open anything, was just no.
So you got to look at the pretty box basically.
Yeah, and then there was another time, I'm trying to remember exactly what the problem was, but like basically if I tried to open any application, well, I mean, it didn't matter what computer I tried to log on to, it was almost like I was trying to run the application remote connection on, I don't know, 56k from last off college to Baghdad.
Yeah.
It's like, oh hey, let's try and open up this thing. I think I'm gonna go and grab myself a Coke.
Yeah, I want to go have my break now.
Yeah, I'll just go and have a beer and I'll be back in a minute.
I'll come back tomorrow and it'll be loaded.
Mate, and here's the trick, like sometimes it didn't. Now, that was another one. Trying to type on Word would fail. I couldn't save anything from Microsoft Word. No idea why. Just Word would not work. And so for an entire, like, I don't know, I can't remember how long it took for them to fix. I had to type my assignments in Notepad. Because it was the only thing I had where I could type and save. Long before the days of Google Docs, kids. Back before the cloud was just a server somewhere.
Yep. Were you there the day they decided to upgrade one of the hard drives and basically shut down everybody's ability to save anything?
Oh, wow.
So, we're to the end of the day, end of the session. We'll be doing work for the last couple of hours and so forth. We all start saving. Also, every time we try to save, it just hangs, and then it says cannot access drive.
Oh.
And everybody's had the same issue, thinking, what's going on here? Network issue or so forth. And eventually they get through to someone at IT. Oh no, they decided they're going to upgrade one of the hard drives, and in doing so, disconnect the whole the data servers from the network. Didn't tell anybody.
I was going to say, that's nice of them, innit?
Yeah, didn't tell anybody that, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to be upgrading this, and you will not be able to save anything.
IT department. There are they weren't comp sci students at the time, but there are students on the computers. They're the only reason they are there are for these computers. They need to know.
Yeah.
Oh bless. Yeah, good times.
I remember the day they actually made me an admin. That was quite fun.
Oh mate.
I got on my computer, and all of a sudden, it's like, I've got access to everybody's files. Why can't I see everybody's files? Why can't I see every CD-ROM drive in the entire college?
Did you have access to just right-click and eject every single drive?
Yes, I did.
Oh, mate.
I literally just controlled a right-click eject and just across the room.
Yeah, I was going to say you missed a trick if you didn't.
Yeah, I was thinking across the entire college, every CD-ROM drive. I mean, I don't know if I had access to the entire network, but
you just sat there going, fucking absolute power.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, you've got access to the CD drives. Chill out, son.
I have the ability to disrupt the one person who's got a CD playing in the background.
Oh, mate.
I can cause mild annoyance.
Beautiful.
Yeah. They fixed that fairly quickly.
And now you know. Now you know how we ended up here.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man. And that's why we're not. That's why we're not famous. I'm surprised we haven't been arrested. To be honest with you.
Yeah, well, we've not really done anything bad, have we?
Well, I don't know.
Shh. Shh.
No, don't say a word. Don't say a word. But yeah, well. Oh,
Yeah.
mate. Good times.
Oh, mate. Oh, good times, good times, good times. I will take this opportunity just right now and think about it. To apologise for the quality of my audio. I'm in a barn.
Is that a problem?
Well, not quite. Almost in a barn. When I say a barn, I'm in the farmhouse in the living room next to a wood burner. But, you know...
So what you're doing is you're just you're preloading excuses.
Yeah,
You're
I
sat
am,
there
yeah.
with your feet up in a nice, comfy wingback chair.
Oh no! I'm not.
glass
Oh
of
no!
wine.
No! I'm sat here on you know, in cross-legged on the wooden floor with it's huddling near the wood burner, which I'm having to let go out because it takes about 2 hours to go, and I won't go to sleep with the wood burner running just in case it sets fire to the chimney.
Oh dear.
So it's gradually getting colder and colder in here. The little fan that's run via convection is gradually getting slower.
See, when you said you were sat there cross-legged, I'm imagining you sat there like a like a guru. Oh,
I am. Imagine Buddha, but he's wearing a dressing gown, and that's all all the thermals, and that gives you an idea of what I look like right now.
So what you're saying is you're talking about Buddha in a rather chilly environment.
Yes.
Buddha, if Buddha was hanging out in the UK.
Well, isn't Buddha from a very chilly place?
Not as chilly as the bloody UK.
We used to live him in the mountains, didn't he? Wasn't it snowy
Mate.
up there? I don't know anything about. I don't really know anything about Buddhism. To be
Yeah,
honest.
in fairness, yes, it's cold. It's cold, but this
Now,
is the UK. There is nowhere colder and more miserable than the
Buddha.
UK.
Is he a deity or dude? I don't know. Was he an actual person, or was he a deity?
Oh, mate. I ain't saying a word just in case I get this wrong. I don't think you should say it
I
either.
thought he was an actual person.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I would Google, but I don't risk the sort
Yeah,
of
don't
like
touch anything.
teetering-
Don't touch anything.
Yeah.
We have literally got this dial-up connection running just so. Don't. Bandwidth is
Yeah.
not our friend right now.
No, it's definitely not.
Our question, how's your signal, Ram? Because this is how we're all going to be living in the future.
Signal's pretty good round here, actually.
You can piss right off. I'm like right on the side of town.
Yeah,
I
I know.
can barely
You're
get a phone signal to save my life.
It amazes me how poor the signal is at your property. Every time I go there, I thought, why have I lost 4G all of a sudden? I'm in the middle of sticks and I get 4G connection.
Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful?
Also-
You're thinking to yourself, hang on, is this like some kind of murder house or something? Is this where people go to like... You can't
And
get a
what-
signal in my house, yet somehow, when someone really wants to get on my tits or I want peace and quiet, that's the 1 second my phone goes, oh, mate, signal. Ring, 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 get in the bin. Oh, mate.
Yeah,
Soon
well,
we're
you
all
know.
going to be on. We're all going to be on data connections rather than actual connections, so...
Maybe. I think there'll be physical connections for... Well, if physical disappear anytime in the future, I tell you what, City Fibre are going to be pissed off.
Oh, mate, it's largely going to be City Fibre that's going to be the fucking cause of it, the bastards. So it can't do the fucking job to save their lives.
Well, they put all ours in. It's quite good.
Are you telling me
wait
you're on
for the
fibre?
ISP.
You're on proper fibre?
We're waiting for the ISP to take it on board. They reckon March this year we should be on it. We should be able to get on it.
Is that the Voda connection?
I don't know.
I was going to say, I don't think BT are on their own yet.
When I looked at who did I look at? Oh, what was it going to be called? About because when they turned up to start digging the road out to put the fibre connections in, I looked up to see, and I found out one ISP who were basically saying you should be online by March. We should be able to offer you 100 gig connection by March.
Yeah.
Because we've brought a little box in, you can see the little holes in the road, all the little cables are in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they've done a really
crossed.
bad job around town. Really bad job around town.
it's not the neatest of jobs, but they've had to do an awful lot in a very short space of time. And they were like, it was like, you know, when you see like those video time lapses of like ants devouring a rat.
Yeah.
That's dead. It was like that. There's just like hundreds of them turn up and it's just sort of like move through your street in a matter of days. It's just done. It's quite remarkable.
No. They've done a really bad job. Haste makes waste. No,
Oh yeah, I would say it's the neatest job.
Mate, some people, right, they pay for the connection, they ain't getting it. They're on dial-up when it rains. Which is weird because it's fibre. So where have they fucked up?
Well, City Fibre don't. So here's how it works. City Fibre themselves don't
They just
run.
install.
They install it, yes, and then it's down to. So they basically put the capability in. It's then down to for ISPs to then take it to basically a bit like how BT put on all the phone lines, then other people use them. Obviously, it's not how it started originally, but it's all the equivalent thing. So City Fibre just install the cable stuff. They don't actually do anything about running the network per se. They just put the capability there. So you can be stuck. So because when I was like reading to see how long it become before I go online, and so generally so it depends basically how many people request it. Then it depends if an ISP then puts in like the other hardware required to do it. So in some cases, after having City Fibre go through, they've been online within a couple of months. Some people have waited 18 months because it's not them, it's the ISPs
Oh, no, it's not.
that you have to wait
That's
for.
not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people have paid for a connection and it ain't working. Like, it's been there and then it's gone. And then they've had to have engineers come out.
Well, whenever they roll out these sort of things, it always happens, doesn't it?
Hmm.
So it's part and parcel of how any rollout goes.
I was gonna say I'm not touching it yet. There's no need for it, to be fair.
Well,
So
we'll see how
Ram,
much it costs.
so, well, they're saying it's going to cost about the same as a BT line, but
Yeah,
I'll take reliability over speed at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get there.
What you been up to, Ram?
Well,
What you been doing on your Linux laptop in the middle of nowhere?
so I've been doing some Linux gaming, Skazz.
Ooh!
I downloaded Steam
Oh wow!
and installed it, and then I went through the list because there seems to be not an easy way to filter your game. At least not obvious. At least not the time I spent looking. An obvious way to filter your list by. Show me what I can run on Linux.
Really? There should be a little penguin icon you can click.
Well, I went into the filters.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I want something still like probably filter by, and there's no option to filter by OS. Well, that's a bit strange. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I found a game. So I've been playing Opus Magnum, which is by the same people. Was the same? Do you remember? It'd be about probably 5-6 years ago. I talked about a game called Space Chem. It's basically the same people, and it's Space Chem was you have to assemble, basically make production lines to assemble atoms to make compounds, which you then create. You then sort of send off and produce. You have to make a machine that when it runs, it's automated and does it all by itself and cycles through, and it's about sort of making an efficient machine to do it.
Yeah.
Opus Magnum is basically, it's for all intents and purposes, it's the exact same idea, except you're an alchemist, and you are, instead of working with atoms, you're working with the fundamental elements of earth, air, water, and fire. and you're working with like base metals, and then you're transmogrifying them into higher up metals and so forth. And it's sort of more sort of that sort of like trees. It's more saying a fantasy world where alchemy is a big thing. Yeah. And you are basically you. The game works by you are presented with a hex grid this time. I think Space Chem was a square grid, and this grid's called the trans. I think it's called the transmultiplier, and it's basically where you build your production lines. So you'll have a output space you place, and you can also place your inputs. And again, I think in Space Chem, I might not be sure. I think Space Chem, the output position was fixed. I think. That's all kind of played, so I might be wrong on that. This one, you can place like the output, and the output will have it could be just a single like it's called output reagent or something like that. So you have income reagents and output products, something like that. And it'll be like a shape that will be either a single like thing, like I just want fire or I just want salt. Or it might be like more complicated. So it might be like a fire joined to two waters, or like a salt, fire, salt. And these can be configured not just necessarily in a straight line. They might be configured in a S shape. They might be configured in like a right angle or different shapes. Basically, any sort of shape you can imagine on a hex grid. It's how they can be configured. And your job is to build them. So you'll have reagents or entry points, and you get a limited number of these that you place on your grid. And so you may have, say, like you may have like sort of like say you want to combine salt and fire together, for example. You may have like that as an output, and then you'll just have a salt reagent entry point and a fire entry point, and you place them in the grid, and then you have to move around, and you move around with like little robot arms. And these arms will basically, where you position them, and they will, they could be like, you can set how long they are. So you can set if they're like only like one grid space away or up to 3 grid spaces away. You have fixed arms, which, as the name suggests, are fixed. They can't change their length. So they can rotate round, but they can't change their length. Mm-hmm. You also have piston arms that you can tell to go in and out and so forth. So they can change the distance away. And also that will also affect how far they can move in a given time, because obviously when you've got something that's longer, it travels further in like a rotation. And so the arms will pick up things, and they might have to put them on like a joiner, which is basically if there's 2 elements on either side of the joiner, they'll get joined together. And joiners can be like a pair, or it can be one that joins like sort of 3 together, up to 4 items together. So this is how you combine to make your bigger elements. Is you might have to use a series of joiners to sort of build them up in pieces. And you then also have like you also have things that sort of like break joiners up. You can also have things that will actually like glyphs that basically will transform things. So there's like a glyph that will transform any of the base elements, air, fire, earth, water, and it'll turn into like sort of salt. It'll just break it down to salt as like its base element. You've got ones that will like upgrade metal. So if you find it with quicksilver and a base metal, it'll upgrade it like a step up on the chain. So you can basically keep doing this. Eventually, you'll upgrade it from it starts off at like lead, and then it gradually goes up to the chain, all the way up to gold if you put enough sort of like stages into it. So in order to then manipulate your arms, you basically have like a timeline at the bottom of the screen, and you can basically put prone codes. So every time you put an arm on the screen, you'll get another like track appear on the timeline, and you then have a series of commands, and the track is split up into like cycles, as it were, like little frames of time, and you can put a command in. And the commands are very simple. They are grab and drop, rotate the arm either clockwise or counterclockwise, and because it's hex based, it's 1/6 of a turn, so basically 60 degrees. Because obviously grid base, hex base, you have 6 adjacent spaces. You can also rotate the product in the arm's handle instead. So if the arm has obviously if the arm holds something like straight out from it, as it rotates around, that object's going to rotate with it. It might be pointed in the wrong direction, so you can rotate it round. And where it comes the idea is going to try and sort of arrange this timeline and your objects moving so they don't clash with each other. So arms can't move through other arms. Obviously, they hit each other. Likewise, elements can't move through other elements. They all smash into each other and stop moving, and the games crash. So it's all about sort of setting up these production lines, but also setting up timings for every part of the production line on this timeline so that they can actually take around and build up your elements. And the sort of base idea of the game is to try and create first a machine that works and builds what you want it to build, and also create something that is efficient. So after you complete every level, you'll get given a bar. It'll show you a bar graph. This bar graph will show basically stats on how many cycles it took to complete the whole output. And that's not just like one output. So, for example, most levels where you produce 6 copies of the same thing. So your machine has to be repeatable as well. You can't just do it once. It has to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So it has to be able to reset. And there's some nifty little commands. And there's like one command that basically is drop whatever you've got and go and reset yourself back to your original position. Simple little command you can put in there, which is handy. You don't have to like put all the steps into thing. You also set up loops if you need a command to repeat multiple times. So like in that example I gave, transferring lead into gold, I basically had a command that moved the lead into one position on that little upgrader, and then I had a repeating loop of grabbing quicksilver and moving it into the other place to upgrade the lead. And once they got to gold, it could then move it to the output position. So you're putting these sort of timelines and so forth, and you're trying to create sufficient machines. At the end, you'll be presented these graphs of how many cycles to complete to get all your outputs done, how much area you used up, and how much you cost every item you put on. There's no monetary limits to what you spend to build these machines. But you are, at the end, the game will tell you how much it costs. And these bar graphs are basically representative of all the other players of the game. So you can see, are you below, you'll see where you are like below average, above average, so forth. And you also get like, it will show you where the like most common bar graph is. So it's not always an even distribution. Sure. You don't get your normal distribution. You can have like one that's all like skewed to the left or skewed to the right, and so forth. And generally speaking, I was hitting most of the time in the average, like the high. Well, not the average, the high. Well, yeah, it would be the average. The highest point of the graph, I was generally hitting it, because I was doing. Presumably, I'd come up with the same machine that everybody else had come up with,
sure,
or a slight variation on it. So that's all sort of like things. It's all coded to, and you can also record your machine every time you do it. You can basically get recorded as a GIF.
All right.
And then you can like send your friend the GIF, and they can see your machine operating and doing its stuff and
That's neat.
what have you if you want to. It's neat, yeah. So you can record a GIF. This is very much like how Space Chem from memory works as well. So it's a really neat little puzzle. So if you like sort of like, I must have prefer I've played quite a few of these games, which are they're basically programming games really, in that you're building little programs to run and achieve something. But it's visualized.
Sure.
But this has got the nicest way I've seen of actually showing you how all your parts interact. With most of these games, you would set up your timings and stuff on the individual component. In this, you actually have this lovely timeline at the bottom, so you can see exactly where. And you can do things like you can actually step through it like frame at a time, so you can see how every step of the process goes along, so you can judge to where you want to exactly move your arm, because you don't want your arms to clash, but you want to have them so that they move at the same time, so that you can have perfect timing is as one arm is letting go and moving out the way, the next arm's moving to grab it. So you can sort of see this. It's really neat. You can see it. It makes it a really easy interface to use to see. You can see where you're going to have problems. And sort of like if you sort of like pay attention as you're doing it and pay attention to what you're doing, the first time you run your machine, it'll run perfect, because you can actually got these ways to sort of debug it as you go along and visually see how it's going along. And because it's basically set on like a series of, they call it cycles, so every part moves on a cycle rather than like specific times and so forth. because they do it that way, it's very easy to make sure you're not going to have a crash and so forth and debug. You're not going to get situations where I've played games in the past where your timings has been like on seconds, but when you have lots of machines, they all slightly drift off in time.
Yeah, sure.
So you can have situations where it works fine for half of it, and then all of a sudden everything drifts off slightly and it all goes crashing together. This doesn't do that because everything moves on almost like a turn. It's probably a better way to think. It's like a turn, like little turns. So you know it's not going to have problems, and you can spawn in advance and so forth. And there is a nice sort of thrill of sort of like, okay, how am I going to build this? And okay, I'll give you a situation you might have. You might have a situation where like you need to produce your output is going to be like 2 salts, or 2 fires, and then on sort of each end of those is a salt, and the salts are sort of like off-centered by 1, so it's almost like a lightning bolt shape.
Yeah.
The 2 fires in the middle, but your only input you got is 3 fires. That's all you got. So you know you're going to need to turn the fires into salt, and you're going to need to make like pairs. So I set up a machine which basically would make up a pair by using 2 fires, and I'd like this double arm. So I'd like, because one of the other arms you can get has like an arm on either end. So you have one that's got like a single arm. You can have one that's got an arm on either end, so they're opposed. You have a triple arm, and you can have a 6-way arm, which is like the most you can possibly have because it's a hex base. And so I built this machine, which was like would make up this pairing by taking advantage of the fact they had 2 arms. So as like one arm sort of swung in and dropped the first part down, the other arm would be picking up the component it needs, and it then swing around the other way, which then transform that component. So in the case of transformation, you just simply you don't have to you just simply have to pass over the glyph, and it will just transform.
Yeah.
You have to like do anything with. You have to stop and drop and so forth. And same when you get to a joiner, you don't have to. As long as the 2 objects are adjacent to each other, they'll join. They don't have to be dropped. Obviously, if you have 2 arms moving into the joiner, one of them will have to drop it because otherwise they can't carry on because they'll both try and take off with what they've got. But you can sort of I put a system which basically made up. So I made this little system that made up pairs of these units, and I had another set of arms that basically would take these pairs and put them to either side of a joiner and join up the final components. So I basically, in like a couple of 3 hours, made this thing that could make this 4-way component. And that's neat when you do that. When you can do that, it's really neat. That makes it, you feel clever.
Sure.
You feel kind of thing. It's one of those games. I can see why a lot of people are there who wouldn't like it. If you like the idea of like finely tuning, timing everything to make it work just right. But it's a lovely game to play with just a mouse or touchpad. You know, you don't need and there's no time, there's no like monetary requirements. You can just literally sit at it and stare at it for hours. It doesn't matter. You take your time. Which is a nice, relaxing, perfect game to play on an afternoon when you've only got your laptop to hand. It's been such a nice little thing. It's quite long. I got sort of through the sort of like first sort of like it's like sort of 8 stages. I sort of got to, and each stage is split into lots of sub stages where your character basically gets hired at different houses and stuff as he goes along. I sort of got through the sort of first section of the game, and I looked up, well, how long this game is, and they went, it's going to take to complete the game. So it's about 26 hours. So it's a decent decent sized length game.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering the average game these days is sub 8. Yeah,
exactly. So for this little puzzle game, but it's a real fantastic length of game. It's something I think you can just pick at as well. These are sort of games I tend to like. I just want to do something, but I don't really want to have to engage the brain or the hands too much. I just want to like sort of have a lazy day. Just sit on the sofa, cup of coffee / can of beer in one hand, laptop on the other with a touchpad. That's all you need. You'll be playing this game. And I love these sort of style of these. I do love these sort of like, say, programming-esque games, which is all about creating these little logical structures and strains and so forth. So yeah, I have to say, I really, really enjoyed it. It is basically Space Chem, though. That's what I would say. It's not. It is virtually, yeah. There is no. I mean, to be fair, there's only so many things you can do with this sort of kind of setup, but it does feel like it's just a reskin of Space Chem. But so long as it's play Space Chem, it's sort of it was nice to do something similar again. Obviously, it looks a bit prettier as well.
Sure.
So, but yeah, neat game. I recommend it.
It's one of those kind of pick your theme style deals, then I suppose.
It is, yeah. I mean, any sort of like situation where you're combining things together. So Space Chem is you're combining atoms together. This you're combining elements together. But I'm sure you could have any other sort of like setup where you could make a game which you could change those elements for bits of a machine, and you'd be doing the same sort of thing.
Well, it just kind of makes me think of, like, I don't know, for example, if we were going to play, say, Vermintide or Darktide, there are some people who would prefer to play the more medieval style game versus just for a strictly aesthetic, like a reason just based purely on aesthetics.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah, if you're more into sci-fi, then you're more likely to buy the same game, and vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So, cool. No, very good game. What about you, Skazz? You been up to anything?
I have been. So I decided I've been going kind of trying to go through my backlog of late, and a game.
Bloody hell, it's going to take you a while.
Yeah, just a while. I've hit 1,000. I think it says 1,500 games. According to the little games counter on Steam, your library lists a completely different number. Because my library says I've got 1,709. If I go to my profile and then click games, it says I've only got 1,500. So there you go. I've got a few games to go through. One game has crossed my path many a time, and I keep going, I want to play that. But then I'll drift off to something else. And it's a game I've actually bought multiple times. Like I bought it on the Switch, so I'm like, I'll play it on the Switch. That'll be a nice game to just play on the couch kind of thing. Or, because it's on the Switch, I can put it in my backpack, and if I have some downtime, I can just pull the game out and have a little go. It's just something quick, something simple, job done. Never played it. And then it came out on Steam, and I was like, I will buy it on Steam. I will give that a go. Never happened. Steam Deck comes out, install it on the Steam Deck. It's one of the verified games on the Steam Deck. Never played it. I was just like, you know what? Sod it. I'm actually going to give this game a go. I'm going to give it a shot. It's a throwback to a time long gone, a genre that isn't very popular anymore, which is kind of sad. The side-scroll and beat 'em up.
Oh yeah,
kind of like Streets of Rage and that. So I played. I played Scott Pilgrim versus the World again recently, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World is very, very, very much inspired by the game that birthed the genre, and the genre is. Well, as I said, it's a side-scrolling brawler, and it was the initial one that I can think of. Once upon a time, there were games like Kung Fu. The side-scrolling brawler was just that. Like, imagine like a platforming game like Mario, but you would punch people. Right, so you had like Kung Fu. Have you ever played Kung Fu?
No, I know, but I don't have played, apart from one terrible one, I haven't played any side-scrolling beat-em-ups.
Fair enough. Well, so once upon a time, it just used to be left, right. Enemies would come at you, you punch them, they die, job done, right? And if they touch you, you lose health or you die straight away. No up, down, whatever. It was just left, right, punch, maybe a jump with a kick. That's it. And then, I'm not going to give it the Japanese name because for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. It's like Neketsu Renegade Kunio-kun or something like that. But it's the name we got was Renegade. The bastardized, Americanized version of Kunio-kun. But in Kunio-kun, in Renegade, you could move up, down, left, right. You know, you had an 8-way movement, and instead of just punching someone once and them going down, you'd actually have to fight them. You'd swing at them like a madman, and it's based in the culture of like that's the Yankee culture, which is Japanese term for juvenile delinquents. So if you've ever seen the character Space Dandy, which is a TV show that Bard likes, it's a character that Bard likes. a lot of these kids, like a lot of these Yankees, would kind of look like the character from Space Dandy. Or, I suppose you could imagine Jotaro Kujo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Anyway,
Is it because because I've seen pictures of Space Dan? Is it because it's sort of like 19 sort of like 50s, 60s sort of America, sort of like sleeked hair and
that kind of group.
That's why they call the Yankees, presumably.
Yeah. And they've got the big hair. They're like wearing their school uniform, the traditional school uniform. They just go out and kick the shit out of each other.
They sort of Happy Days sort of esque vibe to it.
That kind of groove. They're in the car or they're on their bikes and they just go out and they fight roughhouse. They just cause trouble. They're just like punks. Well, punks before punk, really. The Yankees. It was a neat game for the time. The idea that this high school kid goes out and starts battering the fuck out of street thugs and all that kind of stuff is fun. And if anyone has seen the anime Yu Yu Hakusho, it's that kind of groove as well. Just these, one school fights another school, gets involved with some crime boss, kicks the shit out of them too. Good times. High schoolers, dangerous lot. But it was amazing for the time. This is like in the 80s in the arcades. And then that would birth things like Streets of Rage, Final Fight, Scott Pilgrim in the end. But the thing with the Kunio, so Renegade became an entire series, the Kunio-kun series. Kunio-kun is the main character of the games, the main high school kid. He's been in several games. He's had a TV show, all sorts of stuff. But I said that when we got the game, it was Americanized. Kunio-kun isn't Kunio-kun anymore because obviously the Americans don't like anything remotely Japanese because, I don't know, a kid in Texas is more likely to see a New York subway covered in graffiti than they would be to see a Japanese school kid and a Japanese classroom. I guess, like, oh, mate, that's a kid and that's a classroom. I can recognize that. And then the American guy's like, no, we're going to have to change everything. So that's a really skanky-ass train station or whatever with graffiti everywhere because that's more American, whatever. The Kunio-kun series got broke down into individual games. So in the these are from like the NES era. You'd eventually see shit tons of games that would come out from the Kunio-kun series, and you're like, oh hey, look, here's River City Ransom, and that was a beat 'em up, the 8-way beat 'em up. It was a beat 'em up RPG, which is important because that's where Scott Pilgrim kind of gets the beat 'em up RPG from. Beat enemies up, get money, go into shops, buy food and things to upgrade your character, get stronger, keep going, and so on. Then you're like, oh hey, here's a football game. Interesting, but it's got the same characters from River City Ransom and all. It's the same style. Same developer. That must be their style, their groove of character design. Oh hey, here's a dodgeball game. Oh hey, same characters, same developers, all different names and stuff. It's like, okay, cool. They've got a really neat style. What we in the West didn't realize, and America and Europe, they're all the same character. They're in the same world. It's the same school, Neketsu High. But when it got Americanized, when it got localized, the Americans start changing things, and then if one team gets hold of one game and another team gets hold of another game, Kunio-kun become Dave. And then in the next game, Kunio-kun becomes, I don't know, Jeff. And it's like they don't tie in at all, but it's a long running series from the 80s, inspired tons of stuff. Well, I said River City Ransom. That's the one that most people know. It's an 8-way beat 'em up on the NES. Kunio-kun goes out, leaves school, starts fighting people, get money, get items, level up, keep going, gets a boss, win, job done. Punch as many people in the face as you can, whip as many people as you can, hit people with bins, hit people with baseball bats. Standard beat 'em up fare, right? Keep hitting enemies until they die. Job done. Not violent. We'll just pretend they're all knocked out like in Pokemon. We didn't just set fire to a mouse. It's fine. It's fine. All right? It's fine. The series was rebooted by Way Forward. Kind of. It's never really died, but the next big one, they did a spin-off reboot called River City Girls. And in it, two characters, Kyoko and Masako, they were originally in a Super Nintendo Kunio-kun game that we never got. Good job, because we didn't fuck it up. They are Kunio and Ricky's girlfriends, two main characters from the Kunio-kun series. Kunio and Ricky get kidnapped. It's up to the girlfriends to go and save them. And so you get a modern take of a Kunio-kun game, a River City Renegade style game. 8-way beat 'em up where you move around a map. The map is consists of rooms, individual screens, and you beat up enemies. You can get skills through leveling up. So the more enemies you fight, the more XP you get. The higher the level you get, the more money you get. You can go into shops, buy items. You can equip items to give yourself more stat boosts or buffs, debuffs, whatever. So you might say, I equipped this item. I'm now stronger against female characters, but I'm now weaker against cheeseburgers or something like that. Or you can go to a coffee shop and you can buy yourself a drink. And then instead of, you can either eat it there and get some stat points and some of your health back, or you can carry it on your character, and then in the middle of a fight, if you need health, you can open up your inventory and consume it and get the benefit there. You've got the ability to punch the ever-loving shit out of people, and if they get stunned and beg for forgiveness, you can go up to them and recruit them and use them as like an assist attack, like say Marvel vs. Capcom. You press a button and this support character comes out and they'll use a move, and they could stun enemies, big fly kick, suplex someone, whatever. And that's great. And they've got a health bar too. They get hit when you summon them. Eventually they'll die. You can grab another one if you need to. Or they're on a cooldown timer as well, so you can't just spam them and have them do like an ultimate special finishery thing. But yeah, it's I've just gone completely off the rails trying to explain a series that's been running since like 1987 through to now, where we've butchered it. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Sounds like you've been enjoying it. So
mate, I have put in 6 hours today alone.
So you say also they've been Americanized and so forth. Is there is it possible to get hold of, like, in this sort of area, of the original versions, or have you got just like download the ROMs and stuff, or are they all just fully localized?
That's the interesting thing. So for the life of me, I can't remember why I decided to just go back to the Kunio-kun series, but I was like, because I keep seeing River City Girls in my library. I'm like, River City Ransom, the Kunio-kun games, that's kind of neat. What games are out there now? Because a few years ago, Way Forward, I think it was Way Forward and Arc System Works, spat out Double Dragon. Have you ever heard of Double Dragon?
Yeah, I've heard Double Dragon.
Right.
Isn't there one called Double Dragon Neon as well?
Yes. So here's the trick. Double Dragon is made by the same people who make Kunio-kun, and it also takes place in the same universe as Kunio-kun. So a bunch of characters from Double Dragon turn up in River City Girls. And a few years ago, I say a few years ago, it was quite a while ago, Double Dragon 4 was released. It might be 4 or 5. And then, as you say, Double Dragon Neo was released. That seemed to kind of be the return of the classic side-scroll and beat-em-up. And then we got Streets of Rage 4 came out. And other stuff like Scott Pilgrim and stuff like that, they started coming out. Well, the Kunio-kun games in Japan they've been released somewhat regularly. They've been, Nintendo games, Super Nintendo games, Game Boy Advance games, Nintendo DS games. Arc System Works created a collection called the Double Dragon Kunio-kun Fighting Classics or something like that. And that is the NES Famicom games, not the arcade games, but the NES and Famicom games from Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3, and like 13 different Kunio-kun games. So you've got, River City Ransom, Crashing the Boys, which is a Kunio-kun game, but that wasn't when it came out in the West. Super Dodgeball, again, another Kunio-kun game that we changed. And then you've actually got the original Japanese games. You've got River City Girls 2, and then I mentioned how the girls from River City Girls originally were in an unreleased, unlocalized, unwesternized Super Nintendo game that has been recently re-released and translated as River City Girls 0 on Steam, but it is literally a Super Nintendo game running on PC, pretty much. Like, they've added in some extra kind of like, if you've ever seen one of these like bundle collections, like here's the Street Fighter collection, or if you've ever seen like an NES classic or a Mega Drive classic, you'll turn it on and it comes up with a menu where you can select a bunch of games, and it's all kind of prettied, and it'll have like a bit of text about the game or whatever. As you cycle through the menus, you can look at instruction manuals and things like that. An anthology, really. They've released a few of those, and the River City Girls 0 is basically that kind of thing, but it's just a game. So you have the Super Nintendo game in Japanese, Super Nintendo game in English, Super Nintendo game in modernized English. So it's more akin to River City Girls than the classic Kunio-kun stuff, so the language will be different. And then you've got like, hey, here's the original instruction manual scanned in. Here's some kind of concept art and that kind of thing. Here's maybe a sound test section and all that. Those are the ways you'd really play these games. Annoyingly, the Kunio-kun collection is only available on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. Yet, if you want to buy a lot of the other games, River City Girls 0, River City Girls 2, Double Dragon Neo, Double Dragon 4 or 5 or whatever it was, those are on Steam. But the Kunio-kun collection, it's only on Switch and PlayStation.
Interesting.
For reasons.
Well, yeah. It seems a bit. If all the others have made it across, it does seem a bit weird. But then, we're not publishers and developers. We don't know these rims.
They did say they were going to put it on PC. It was announced for Steam, and then the PC release got put on this random Japanese website. Now, I imagine in Japan, it's a big PC store. For everyone else, we're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Because I would have really liked that collection on Steam. If I had to be honest, it's the only reason I fired up my Switch since Splatoon 3. I was like, oh, hey, there's a Kunio-kun collection on Switch. Well, I wanted to play River City Girls on my Steam Deck. All right, I'll play it on. I'll play it on Switch. In fact, I've been playing it on both.
Fair enough.
I'm playing it through twice.
This is a follow-on from that. It's all sort of follow. How is the Steam Deck treating you at the moment? Are you still making good use of it?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure, mate. In fact, I would say it's probably one of my more reliable machines. And even though I have more powerful machines in this house, I choose to use the Steam Deck more. Although I do use it mostly hooked up to my television set. Very rarely do I run it as a handheld. Very rarely.
It wasn't the same true your Switch though as well. Wasn't the same true with Switch though as well. You used to use it
for
mostly
sure.
hooked up.
As much as as rad as handheld gaming was when I was younger, I haven't really been interested in handheld itself since maybe the 3DS. And the only reason I like the 3DS is because it had a sleep feature where you could just shut the lid and put it in your pocket and it would go. The Steam Deck has that kind of feature too, but the Steam Deck's pretty big, so you can't just slip it in your pocket. And not all games will use that sleep resume feature. So that's not really a thing I use. If Valve said, "Hey, yo, we're going to come up with the next Steam machine, and it's a console-ized Steam Deck," I would buy that in a heartbeat. Like they're gonna let's say they come up with the Steam Pad 2, and the Steam machine, and you plug it into your telly and you use your new Steam Pad with your dual sticks or whatever. That would be fucking phenomenal. I'd buy one. I'd use that. Great. Actually, have you ever used Big Picture?
Yes.
Right. Big Picture has now been updated to use the Steam Deck UI.
Oh, okay.
So if you've updated Steam in the last week or so, if you hit Big Picture...
Wait. Steam updates itself every 10 minutes when you have a PC running.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like every time you load Steam, there's the update. All right, okay. Downloading 10,000 terabytes of updates. All right, then.
There you go. Job done. But
what was that update doing? We've changed an icon.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, in this case, they've finally reworked Big Picture. I wish Valve would do with the SteamOS 3, what they did with SteamOS 2, like release an image of it, and then let you just bung it onto any hardware you want. I don't think they've actually done that yet. Other groups have done that, but it's a bit flaky. And realistically, it's only programmed to run on AMD GPUs. But the hardware that's in the Steam Deck isn't really readily available yet at a decent price outside of the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
So they'll have, here's an RDNA 2 grade AMD processor with GPU, but it's really fucking expensive and it's only in this one obscure box that you have to get from China. Otherwise, you're using the old Vega stuff that runs like a fraction of the speed. It's not as efficient. You could put SteamOS on that, but it'll run like shit. It'll get worse performance than the Steam Deck for more money than the Steam Deck. But honestly, Steam Deck is a fantastic piece of kit. If you're into classic gaming, Steam Deck's a fantastic piece of kit. If you're into modern gaming, it's a fantastic piece of kit, because a lot of games, if, say for example, a game comes out like Elden Ring, and there are problems with it, Valve are very quick to try and fix it. If they check it and go, that game runs on Steam Deck or can run on Steam Deck, Valve do everything they can to iron out any flaws. Like when Elden Ring came out on PC, it ran like shite on nearly every permutation of hardware you could think of. But Valve were like, we've seen some issues here, we can fix that. So they fixed it. And it ran better on the Steam Deck than it did on some higher end PCs. Like startup-wise, at least. Frame rate-wise and resolution-wise, obviously you had to lock it to 720p, 30 FPS or whatever. But outside of that, it ran better than it did on high-end PCs, even at the same settings. Fantastic. But if you want to play classic games, let's say there's a classic game you like, say, for example, Max Payne. Max Payne doesn't run on modern AMD processors without being patched. Hey, if you've got a Steam Deck, don't worry about it. Proton just runs it. So, good times?
Well, I'm sure I've asked this question before, but I've forgotten. SteamOS, is that totally bespoke? Was that based on an existing Linux?
It's Arch Linux.
Arch Linux, yes, I have asked that question before.
Yeah.
I thought I had.
It's a skew of Arch
So
Linux.
the answer was like, oh yeah, of course, yeah.
It's using Arch Linux as a base. It's a custom build of Arch. But it works great. Are you interested in one, perhaps?
I'm definitely interested in one. It won't be anytime soon, but I'm definitely interested in one. They've now announced that you're going to be able to a 2 terabyte version, and apparently you're about to upgrade your hard drives to existing ones as well.
Yeah. So a couple of companies have actually already released SSDs, but they're quite hard to, or they were quite hard to source because you need to buy a specific type of M2. Because if it's too long, the longer ones will fit, but you'll start to cover the power management. There's a power management chip in it. If you cover it, it gets hot. So the drive will get hot and the chip will get hot, and then
I was going to say that's bad. That's bad time all round by the sounds of it.
Yeah, heat is not a thing with computers. Like, heat is the enemy. So, yeah, but there's loads of stuff happening with Steam Deck. I mean, I've got the biggest model. I've got a terabyte card in there. There are people that, Valve have now made it so you can just plug in external hard drives into your Steam Deck dock if you buy one, or if you buy one of them JSOX ones with the M2 slot in it. You can just format the drive with the Steam Deck, and SteamOS will go, oh, hey, here's another drive. Do you want to use this as another library? And then we can hide games that aren't installed as you remove or add in hard drives.
Yeah. So those dodgy Japanese picture book things games, all the dodgy stuff, you can have those all hidden on a special drive all by themselves.
Yeah. Of course you can. Or just do what I do, have them installed anyway. Now, visual novels are the term
that's the word I was looking for.
Visual novels.
Visual novels.
Mm-hmm. And they're not
picture
all.
Book. I got close. Picture book is close.
Picture book, sure, okay. And they're not all E-rated. But no, you can, Ram, mate. Honestly, for what you're doing out in bumfuck middle of nowhere, you could have literally made this call on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
You could have just pulled it out of a bag or pulled it out of a case, and rather than having to take a laptop with you, you could have just used the Steam Deck. You could just installed your games, played away, and job done.
Yeah,
taken a USB microphone and plugged it in.
Yeah, like I say, Steam Deck's definitely in the there's plans for the future for getting Steam Deck, but not right now.
I absolutely love it. I mean, I started installing RetroArch on there, and a PSP emulator on there, a PS2 emulator on there. Cleared up a bit of space on my SD card. I didn't do the normal. There's an emulation package you can install on. It's called EmuDeck. I didn't install that. I just installed individual emulators because they're all on the Steam store. If you wanted to run some other stuff, you'd probably need EmuDeck, unless you wanted to compile stuff yourself. Like, you could run GameCube and all that kind of stuff on there as well, or Switch if you really wanted to. If you wanted to have just that one games machine to rule them all, if it runs on Proton, you're good to go. If it runs on Linux, you're good to go, and that could be pretty much every classic game gone, from Switch all the way back to the Atari. And any compatible PC game, you're pretty much good to go with one machine, and you can just carry that in a backpack. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm glad it's all getting the drama out of it. I know Minimise is enjoying his Steam Deck.
I'm glad to hear it, to be honest with you, considering this is Middlemeister's kind of first big dip in PC gaming.
Yeah,
I mean,
he wants to speak to you about setting up getting all the animation stuff set up on it.
Sure. Well, I mean, like I say, if he were to just look up EmuDeck, it's just as simple as going to a website and clicking a link, and you could install all of it. It would just run you through a script to install most everything. Or you could do what I did and just installed individual emulators. But yeah, it's for him. Well, let's put it this way: the fact that Middlemeister likes it so much that is a big thumbs up to Valve, that they have done a fantastic job. That someone that doesn't use PCs has picked up a Steam Deck, and they've dived into Steam, and they're having a great old time.
Yeah, he's only laptop he's got is a Chromebook.
Yeah, there are kids at my son's school, my eldest son's school, they've got Steam Decks, and they're like, yeah, it's fucking great, it's amazing. I mean, you know, you can play. These are kids, and they're on Linux. They have no idea. They just download a game off the store, and chances are it plays, and it's fantastic. I was doing, you know, the old Steam in-home sharing thing, or the local co-op thing they have. Have you seen the thing? I can't remember what Steam call it, or Valve.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yes.
Where you
know of it. Yeah, I've never tried
stream
it, but
a game to somebody else, and they can play player 2. We did that off the Steam Deck today. So I was the host on the Steam Deck.
Bloody hell.
And my mate Divine was playing 2-player River City Girls with me. You know, did it work? Great, not really. Did it work? Yeah. The game was fine on my end, not so much on his end, but
yeah, that's gonna be very dependent on
optimization, internet connection, whether or not I was hardwired. Because he was right. So here's the trick. I then got him a copy of River City Girls, and he then hosted a session and sent it to me. So then he was playing through his own save. He was wired in, and I was on Wi-Fi. Now, as soon as I had a connection hiccup, which you often will on Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is not really stable. As soon as you have one of those hiccups, the net code didn't really recover properly. So all of a sudden your frame rate would drop, and it would stay that way. And that's him being hardwired on an actual, somewhat powerful machine. So it wasn't the Steam Deck's fault that it was broken. But yeah, oh man, just amazing fucking stuff, amazing fun, great time we live in if you're into gaming of any kind. Really, you only want to play with your Switch. We said years ago, didn't we? You want to have a PC and a Switch. That was the group back in the day. PC and a Switch. These days, a Steam Deck and a Switch, or just a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Valve have done a fantastic job with that hardware. Like I say, I've only fired up my Switch recently so I could buy that Kunio-kun collection. The only reason I picked up my Switch. There's nothing else on Switch I want to play. Everything else I can play on Steam Deck.
Oh, well, I'm really glad you're enjoying it.
Kunio-kun's a great series. Just saying. Even though I really fucking... Trying to condense that entire series down in a way that people would understand it is... You'd need an entire, hour-long video essay to do that.
Now we just need to wait for Kunio-kun to release itself on Steam. You'll buy it for another time.
Mate, I will. If not, then... I mean, I've got a lot of the ROM files. Because I've dumped a load of stuff over the years. I have a bunch of the Kunio-kun games. So I could just play them on Steam Deck that way, but I wanted to give some cash to the companies who had made the collections. I like those collections when they're done right, even if they are just NES games repackaged, because it's nice to have a collection of games in the modern era that you can just pick up and play. You don't have to download a ROM, download an emulator, go onto a funky website or whatever, or dump in your own cartridges if you want to do it that way. Run the software. Here's a game series you like, hit the button and go. You know, you've not got some 9-year-old kid going, I want to play that game I played with my dad, and then they have to go and find that thing. You know, or I want to play that old game that I played with my mum and my nan, and they have to go onto the internet and try and find it. A nice, easy to download, easy to find package. You know, you should reward developers for that.
Yes,
you know,
I agree.
Archiving gaming history. You know, properly preserving it in a nice, easily digestible package. I wish more games did it. Konami were doing it with Castlevania. Capcom did it with Mega Man and Street Fighter. SNK have done it with Samurai Showdown. They're great things to do when they're done right. I think Sega did it with the Mega Drive and Genesis collection. Nintendo had a little spit at it with the NES Classics. Little things like, I like that. Is it just ROMs repackaged with a fancy wrapper? Yeah. Does that matter? No.
Exactly.
Just yeah, I do think these companies deserve a bit of cash. So if they do release the Kunio-kun collection on PC, I will buy it again, just as a thank you for actually spending the time and showing this spending the time and showing this series some respect, packaging it, putting some little touches, some little flares, some nice little kind of graphical tweaks, some nice interfaces, like scans of the instruction manuals and things. Thank you for doing those little things. Here's some cash. Yeah. Anyway, River City Girls is fucking great. It's an 8-way beat 'em up. You can buy it really cheap when it's on sale. It is worth full price. The soundtrack is a fucking belter. The pixel art is fantastic. And as I say, if you've got a Switch or a PlayStation, you can play it on those, like Switch, PlayStation. I don't know if it's on Xbox. There's 3 games in the series for River City Girls, and if you want to see where it all came from, you can get the Kunio-kun collection on PlayStation or Switch. Although sadly, the Kunio-kun collection doesn't have the arcade titles; it only has the NES ones. But take what you can get.
On everything in life.
Anyway, that's it.
Right. That's it. Okay, well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode with us today. If you have, you can obviously follow us on YouTube and Twitch. You can also check our website, randos.co.uk. And you can come see us on our next podcast on the 25th of February at 9:30. And normal service will be resumed because I'll be back in the warm. So, very much, you can also come join us on our games night, which is on Wednesday again, isn't it? I believe. This Wednesday, which will be at 8:30 on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/SuffolkRam.
And twitch.tv/Skazzius, SK4ZZI0US.
And that'll be on this Wednesday. So, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you then.
Take it easy, guys.